Hello everyone, and welcome to the Integrative Nurse Coach Gathering webinar. I am Carly Mertz, board certified nurse coach, and your host tonight. I'm so grateful that you've joined us for this presentation on co-creating change, the power of knowing participation in nurse coaching. So as nurse coaches, we recognize that transformation unfolds through awareness, choice, and intention. So tonight we'll explore a theory that beautifully captures that process, the theory of power as knowing participation in change, developed by Dr. Elizabeth Barrett. Our guests this evening have each contributed tremendously to the advancement of nursing science, holistic and integrative practice, and nurse coaching. So it's my honor to introduce our first guest, Dr. Violet Malinski. Dr. Malinski earned her BSN from Rutgers College of Nursing and both her master's and doctorate in nursing from New York University. Her early career included both community and inpatient psychiatric nursing before she transitioned into academia, most notably as a faculty member at Hunter College of Nursing and the City University of New York Graduate Center, where she taught across baccalaureate, master's, and doctoral programs. Dr. Malinski has edited and co-edited books, published numerous scholarly articles, and helped found the Society of Rogerian Scholars, serving as its first treasurer and newsletter editor. She also co-founded Visions, the Journal of Rogerian Nursing Science, continuing to be a guiding light in this field. Today, she enjoys gardening, reading, and sharing life with her 3 cats while remaining actively involved with both the Society of Rogerian Scholars and the Martha E. Rogers Scholars Fund. So our second guest, Dr. Nancey France, is a board-certified advanced holistic nurse and board-certified health and wellness nurse coach. She's also a trauma-certified HeartMath certified practitioner and was a professor emerita at Florida Atlantic University's College of Nursing. Dr. France's work has woven together decades of leadership in holistic nursing, education, research, and coaching. She has published extensively and co-authored the book, Co-Creating a Holistic Healing Environment in Nursing Practice with Dr. Shirley Gordon. She continues to teach as a faculty member with the Integrative Nurse Coach Academy, inspiring students to explore deeper layers of presence, compassion, and transformation in their practice. So welcome, Dr. Malinski and Dr. France. We're so grateful to share the space with both of you tonight. So before we get started, I'd like to invite everyone just to take a few moments to arrive, to center ourselves in the awareness that supports authentic presence. So wherever you are, find a comfortable position. You might let those shoulders soften, uncross your legs, and take a deep cleansing breath in and out. Notice the rhythm of your breath, the natural flow of giving and receiving. As we breathe together, imagine that each inhale is an invitation to know, to bring awareness to this moment. And each exhale, an opportunity to participate, to release what no longer serves, making space for opportunity. Now gently place your attention in your heart space. Here with the center of connection, visualize a soft light expanding with each breath. Representing your innate power to co-create change in harmony with yourself and others and the greater whole. So let's take one more slow, intentional breath together. In through the nose and out through the mouth. And you can open your eyes and return your attention to the screen. And just bring with you this grounded awareness, this knowing participation in the unfolding of tonight's experience. And if you have any questions during the webinar, please type them in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen, and we'll leave some time at the end to go over them. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Malinski and Dr. France.
Well, Dr. Malinski and I welcome you to this webinar. We have known each other for many years, primarily through the Society of Rogerian Scholars and its lively conferences, especially when they were held in New York City. Violet is one of the co-founders of the Society of Rogerian Scholars. Violet, would you like to share a little bit about that experience with us?
Okay, I was very lucky. In 1986, I was one of a small group that met with Martha Rogers in her living room twice a month. We were talking about the science of unitary human beings. We were brainstorming about ways to evolve it and how to try to bring it to a wider audience. And one of the things we thought of was to form an organization. And we were thinking originally of the Society of Rogerian Nurses, but not Martha. Martha wanted the Society of Rogerian Scholars because she said that nurses are bright, they have great ideas, but often they're reluctant to share them, or they allow people to shut them up, or they don't think they're as good as the other members of the healthcare team, for many reasons. And Martha wanted to make the point that nurses are scholars just as much as any other member of a healthcare discipline. And so we decided we would name the organization the Society of Rogerian Scholars. And in 1988, we were able to bring that to fruition. Elizabeth Barrett was the first president. John Phillips, another co-founder, was the first vice president. Therese Connell-Meehan was our secretary, another founder. I was, as Nancy indicated, the first treasurer and the newsletter editor. And then, of course, there was Martha. So we founded the society, and fortunately, it is still going.
Yes, it is. So before we get started, we want to offer a gentle review. The fifth assumption in the theory of integrative nurse coaching is the nurse coach is an instrument of healing that co-creates with clients the journey of awareness and the power to change towards healing and well-becoming. Tink flows from Rogers' science of unitary human beings and Barrett's theory of power as knowing participation and change. Let's take a look at our objectives for today. There are 3 objectives, and Dr. Malinski will start us off with what is the theory of power as knowing participation and change and the PKPCT.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank both Carly and Nancy for arranging this, and I'm delighted to be here with all of you. The power work. Elizabeth Ann Manhart Barrett brought her feminist perspective on power to NYU, deliberately choosing to leave Indiana to come to New York to work with Martha Rogers. She started in 1976. I started at the same time. That's when we met each other and developed a lasting friendship. Now, Elizabeth quickly realized that if she was going to look at power within the science of unitary human beings, Martha never talked about power. She didn't use the word. But what she did talk about was the idea that people can participate knowingly in the ongoing process of change. Problems arose when either they didn't participate knowingly or they just didn't do it wisely. But they were always participating one way or the other. And so Elizabeth realized that a Rogerian definition of power was already there. It was knowing participation in change. That was what she was looking for. And so, working with Martha, who was the chairperson of her dissertation committee, she ultimately developed both a theory and a semantic differential tool known as the Power as Knowing Participation in Change tool, the PKPCT, to assess power as knowing participation in change. This tool was the second one to be developed within the science of unitary human beings, and the theory was one of the earliest, if not the earliest, to be derived from the science. Through her readings in various relevant areas along with the science and synthesizing her own ideas, she identified the conceptual manifestations of power as awareness, choices, freedom to act intentionally, and involvement in creating change. Given the unitary nature proposed by the science, she also realized that these could not be viewed independently. They were inseparable and interrelated. They had to be looked at as a unitary whole. These four concepts were then validated as consistent with the science through a judge's study with New York University nursing faculty who were knowledgeable in Rogerian nursing science. Power is the capacity to knowingly participate in change by being aware, making choices, feeling free to act intentionally, and being involved in creating change. As she said many times in a nutshell, power is being aware of what one is choosing to do, feeling free to do it, and doing it intentionally. This theory describes power in individuals, but also in groups and in communities. It just depends on your focus. The inseparable association of a person's or a group's power strengths and weaknesses is known as their power profile. And it's important to note that power is inherent. It resides in all of us. Therefore, empowerment is not a concept within this theory, as the prefix MEM suggests a putting into, and no one can give us what we already have. Although this power is inherent, we may not be fully aware of this. While Barrett's interest was in developing a causal view of power, she was often puzzled as to why the four dimensions of awareness, choices, freedom to act intentionally, and involvement in creating change also seem to describe power from a causal perspective. And she talks about realizing finally that the power theory did indeed describe two types of power. The difference is simply that one reflects an acausal worldview and the other reflects a causal worldview. And we happen to live in both of these worlds, and power resides in both of these worlds. So she named these two types of power, power as freedom and power as control. The power theory, of course, is based upon power as freedom, while acknowledging that power as control also exists. But freedom is incompatible with causality, since causality allows for control, prediction, reduction. And these are not concepts in Rogerian nursing science. This expanded her power theory to show how it operates in the two worlds we live in, the causal and the acausal worlds. Of course, practice applications continue to focus on power as freedom, although clients start off more easily understanding how to live power as freedom when it's actually contrasted with power as control. Unfortunately, the usual way people seem to understand power and to witness it playing out in our everyday life. Power as control is often described in terms of force, dominance, manipulation, in the subtle and not so subtle varieties of control. Research using this theory and the power tool over the years have shown significant positive correlations between power and human field motion, power and well-being, with feminism, with purpose, with life satisfaction, with empathy, with hope, spirituality, perceived health, and transformational leadership style. Significant negative correlations have been noted with transactional leadership style, chronic pain, anxiety, distress, alcohol dependence, and hopelessness. The tool has been translated into a number of languages. I think the most recent one is Haitian Creole. Shirley Conrad in 2023 finished her dissertation where she did a mixed method study entitled Nurse Coaching and Power as Knowing Participation in Change in the Process of Health Patterning. Some of you may be familiar with her work, although unfortunately she has yet to get it published, but she's working on it. Her study explored the mutual patterning of the human energy field when professionally certified nurse coaches offered 4 hours of coaching to nurses across the United States who were working during the COVID-19 pandemic, with the expectation that she would see higher frequency wave patterning of power with the nurse coaching. The tool was administered and narrative pattern profiles were obtained from in-depth interviews that she conducted. A paired sample t-test and an ANCOVA controlling for years of experience resulted in high statistical significance across the PKPCT total score and all 4 interrelated dimensions. She identified 6 essences that she depicted along with pre and post power profiles that revealed a change in wave frequency, vigor, and diversity, indicating that certified nurse coaches can mutually assist nurses as their clients in enhancing their power as knowing participation in change. Barrett also developed the first practice methodology for Rogerian nursing. It was modified by Howard Butcher in 2006, who saw a way to include Barrett's original phases with Richard Cowling's methodology from his theory of unitary pattern appreciation. And this change was approved by Elizabeth. So the patterning practice now consists of 2 processes: pattern manifestation, knowing and appreciation, and voluntary mutual patterning. There's no sequential order, even though they're often referred to as phase 1 and phase 2, but both processes are continuously shifting and may be going on simultaneously. With pattern manifestation, knowing, and appreciation, the first question she would ask her clients is, what do you want? As the practitioner, she's interested in knowing what changes people want for themselves. And that's important. It's not a change that the nurse wants, that the physician wants. In this theory, it's the changes that people want for themselves. And that will then become the focus of the health patterning sessions. Relevant historical information will unfold throughout the dialogue, so there's no typical initial health history taken. In the second phase, voluntary mutual patterning, an initial question is, where do you see yourself in your life right now? If a person is having difficulty identifying that, she suggests that you could ask, if you only had 1 sentence rather than 45 minutes, what would you say? The 3 Rogerian principles are operating in this process as nurse and client mutually explore the nature of change in their lives, helicy, as well as the mutual process through which the change occurs, integrality, and how that change evolves, resonancy. And again, helicy, resonancy, integrality, the homeodynamic principles that Rogers introduced. And the focus of attention is creating change without attachment to outcomes or results. That's a hard one, often for nurses. And Elizabeth was adamant, and Richard Cowling also. So their pattern practices fit very nicely together, that it's the outcome is not in my hands. The outcome is up to the person who is living the life. Intentions, aims, directions are consistent with the acausal postulates and principles of the science of unitary human beings, as well as the power theory, of course, whereas setting goals involves endpoints and outcomes. And this is just not appropriate in this framework. She found that her clients quickly learned there is no causal, if I do this, then that will happen. And she found they were often relieved to learn that the way it actually works is, if I do this, then I will see what happens. The phenomenology of the moment is present-oriented, with little focus on the past, which is gone, or the future, which hasn't been created yet. Nevertheless, while recognizing that we are actually using our power to participate in creating that future at every moment that we are living. There is no focus on pathology or diagnosis. The idea of power as knowing participation in change helps people themselves change their limiting beliefs, disturbing emotions, and whatever difficulties in living they're experiencing. She found that most people easily understand ideas of wholeness, unitary human becomingness, and the mutual process with the entirety of their environment, which includes other people, places, things, and all other forms of life, non-human, such as animals, plants, etc. We are not in charge of how things turn out. That is one of the realizations that she wants people to have, because that really involves everyone and everything else that is participating, knowingly or unknowingly, in the ongoing mutual process. Our power concerns what we think, what we feel, say, and do. After initiating a dialogue of what they want to accomplish, in working together, she asked them to specify 3 things they really want to focus on. She would then ask them to complete the PKPCT, telling them nothing about the tool except how important it would be to follow the instructions, and that it was important that they respond to the items frankly and honestly in order to get an accurate, meaningful reading. One of the things Elizabeth suggests is that telling people that the PKPCT can be seen as a reflecting mirror. It is reflecting back to people who they tell it they are. Afterward, one can inquire about their notion about what the tool is assessing. And Elizabeth learned from her experience that people were usually shocked to learn it was about power. And this provides an opportunity to teach them the power theory by briefly describing the definition, the 2 types, the 4 dimensions, and a few examples of the numerous forms in which both types of power manifest in our 2 worlds. In the following session, the practitioner will have scored the power tool and can discuss the person's power profile, strengths, and weaknesses, as well as ways of working together that may enhance their power profile and facilitate accomplishing what they're seeking through power prescriptions and patterning modalities. One power prescription that Elizabeth suggests everyone write down and place where they can see it every day, early in the morning. Start the day with, I am free to choose with awareness how I participate in the changes I intend to create. She offered a set of 8 questions as power prescriptions for making specific changes or just choosing to live one's life more powerfully. What am I aware of? What choices am I making? Am I following through on the choices I make? And what actions am I taking? And hopefully you can see how relevant this is for the nurse as well as for the client, actually for everyone. After taking time to think about the answers to these 4 questions, she offered another 4. Do the changes I intend to create interfere with anyone else's freedom? Do the changes I intend to create attempt to control, dominate, manipulate, or bring harm to anyone? Do the changes I intend to create harm my health or shorten my life? Do the changes I intend to create violate what I know to be my truth? Now, I have to introduce a caveat here, and unfortunately, this was not something I ever actually discussed with Elizabeth, but I have no doubt that she would be in full agreement. It is sometimes necessary to interfere with another's freedom when that freedom is perceived to include the right to harm another living being or the environment. Social justice, actions to overcome oppression, respect for diversity are of paramount concern here, and they certainly were of paramount concern to Elizabeth, so I don't doubt that she would agree. Power as freedom also is not about forcing yourself to do something you don't want to do. Rather, it's about making aware choices, feeling free to carry out these choices, and then doing so in a way that helps you remain true to your values, such as those that pertain to your own well-becoming. This approach requires practice methods and patterning modalities consistent with this worldview. Patterning modalities, as you all know probably, are general approaches used to help people use their power in new ways, whether to address lifestyle changes, struggles with an illness, difficulties in living, or just enhancing power as freedom through involvement in a healing encounter. These modalities are selected within the context of what's happening within a person's life and in relation to the nurse's knowledge and skill in using them, as well as the client's personal preferences. And it's important that they take place in a life-affirming, caring environment, which Rogers described as unconditional love. Of particular note is the patterning modality. And again, I'm talking about things like imagery, meditation, etc., that I'm sure you're all familiar with. But the one that Elizabeth uniquely developed and talked about is love, power, resonance. She said, love is the most potent form of power as freedom, and love and freedom are intimately connected. Thus, love power resonance is a powerful, resonating, healing wave. It's the way people feel and experience their unitary nature, interrelated with all, especially those who are most loved, whether human or other than human living beings. It is the meaning of the love that is experienced with them, including in that special bond of nurse and client. It is the glue that holds together the living and those who have transcended as pure energy spirit being a term coined by John Phillips for the science of unitary human beings. I'll just briefly mention another PKPCT. This is the Barrett Malinski short form. And it was originally developed as a tool to use in practice, especially in hospital settings, because it would take less time to complete. The intent behind the shortened form is to determine what is most important to the patient or client at that particular moment, however related to health or well-becoming. The 4 interrelated dimensions are on the tool, each with 3 of the bipolar adjective pairs from the original tool, with the instruction to respond to each in relation to whichever present issue or concern is most pressing to them in the moment. And anyone interested in using either form of the tool in practice or research can certainly contact me. And I will stop there. Thank you very much for your attention. Nancy?
Wow. Okay. Wonderful. So now we're going to segue into why is this theory and the PKPCT valuable to nurse coaching? As most things, the nurse coach process is not a linear process, but an integral process with alternating rhythms. The nurse coach bears witness and accompanies persons on the personal path of healing and well-becoming. In the nurse coach sessions, we are listening to the story with heart. As clients set goals, the nurse coach is guiding them to reach goals and determine the extent to which goals are achieved. Or as Violet was saying, what the person see happening to them. We might have to tweak our language a little bit to be more in sync. The theory of power as knowing participation in change has been applied in a variety of nurse coach practice settings, including supporting clients to become more aware of life patterns and to make intentional choices for healing and well-becoming, encouraging clients to participate meaningfully in managing their health, even amid uncertainty or irreversible chronic conditions, supporting patients and families in discovering their power to make decisions grounded in awareness and intentional presence in their living dying. The nurse coach may encourage the client to complete the PKPCT prior to the first session and then after the third nurse coaching session. During the fourth and typically last session, the nurse coach reviews with the client the 2 PKPCTs while guiding the client and understanding their power profile. As the nurse coach explains the changes that have evolved, the client understands how their awareness has changed about themselves and their environment, what they're noticing about their choices and intentions, and what they're noticing about their involvement and feelings about change. So as Violet has said, pointed out to us, the 4 indicators of experiencing change: awareness, choices, freedom to act intentionally, and involvement in creating change. These 4 concepts or dimensions are dynamic, nonlinear, and interconnected. They reflect a person's life patterns that align with integrative nurse coach practice of facilitating transformational growth. When completing the PKPCT, the numbers are not present. So let's take a moment to think about why the numbers are not present. We're human, and we're not always honest with ourselves, especially when we know someone else is going to see how we responded on a tool. If the numbers were there, 1 through 7, how would you be marking these items? Probably more 6s and 7s than 1, 2, or 3s. The client simply places an X closest to the adjective where they feel they are in the moment. What is important to note here is to look at the pattern of the X's. What are they indicating? What does this show us about the client's awareness? The client's awareness, when you look here, what we put on here, seems to lean more towards superficial, unintentional, timid, following, chaotic, shrinking, constrained. And several look like they're right in the middle, meaning neither seeking or avoiding, worthless or valuable, pleasant or unpleasant, important or unimportant. Again, we do not interpret the meaning, but guide the client in discovering their meaning. Once the PKPCT is uploaded into the My Nurse Coach portal, the numbers are then inserted and calculated in each of the 4 dimensions for the nurse coach. But here I did it freehand to show you how the X's translate into numbers. The numbers are added to give a sum, then the mean is calculated in each of the 4 dimensions. So what does the nurse coach do with this information? Well, let's focus on what the nurse coach does not do. The nurse coach does not design sessions around these results. Remember, it's the client that chooses the priorities for the sessions. The nurse coach uses the PKPCT to guide the client in discovering their power through knowingly participating with their environment to make intentional choices and create change for their healing and well-becoming. Elizabeth tells us, clients are able to see for themselves where their power needs strengthening, and they come to understand their beliefs about power as measured by the 12 opposite adjective pairs that further differentiate the 4 dimensions. So as nurses, we like to fall back, as nurse coaches and nurses like to fall back to what's the number? What's the score? What does it mean? Well, there's no strict rubric like pass, fail, or diagnostic rubric like high, low risk. But higher scores might indicate greater awareness or understanding choices, increase in intentionality, and greater involvement in creating change. But the nurse coach encourages the client to look at the pattern of responses versus the numbers. The overall power score is calculated by the mean of each dimension and then the overall mean of the 4 dimensions. But as Violet pointed out already, the dimensions are not compared to one another, but used to guide the client understanding the power profile in its wholeness. When the nurse coach reviewed the scores, the client stated, "It looks like I increased in each of these areas, including my power profile. I did improve in each area, but not as much in involvement in creating change, but I think I know why." The nurse coach said, "Okay, tell me what you're thinking." The client responded, My confidence in myself is increasing. I'm feeling more confident each day in creating change. I think it will continue to increase, right?" The nurse coach answered, "You've already identified that it is increasing. Remember, the goal is to move forward. Your score doesn't necessarily have to increase significantly in any one area or increase all in the same area." This brings us back to Tink's basic 5th assumption. The nurse coach is an instrument of healing that co-creates with clients the journey of awareness and the power to change towards healing and well-becoming. And now I turn it back to Dr. Malinski.
Thank you, Nancy. Elizabeth was my friend from 1976 on. But let me tell you about her as a person. Elizabeth Ann Manhart Barrett was born in Indiana on July 11, 1934, and she left this physical life on August 23, 2021, at the age of 87. She remembered her childhood with her parents and her twin sister as being full of laughter and fun, but also with lessons in honesty and obedience. Her mother, whom she described as an ardent feminist, was a teacher, a grade school teacher, who taught in a one-room school across all of the grades. Whatever the kids needed, she gave them. And Elizabeth said that she would often accompany her mother when she was like around 4 or 5 years old, and she would sit at one of the desks and she would draw and with her crayons and color, etc. But she attributed her lifelong love of learning and teaching to her early experience. However, the family suffered a tragic accident in which her mother and her twin sister were killed. Elizabeth somehow was thrown from the car, but her father suffered severe burns from which he never recovered, so he was never able to parent her again. Instead, she had to go live with her godparents, who welcomed her because they were not able to have children of their own, but who were very staid and conservative in comparison to what she had been used to, particularly with her mother. This incident, though, resonated throughout her life, as you might imagine, and it really sort of, she kept wondering, why me? Why was I the only one? What does this mean for what I need to do with my life? She got a little diverted, I'll say, because of her godparents who were so conservative in their beliefs, and she followed a more traditional path to start with. Straight out of high school, she married. She had 5 children, 3 boys and twin girls. And after about 12 years of working in the home, she suddenly had this realization that she could go to college and become the nurse that she had always wanted to be. Because, like her mother, Elizabeth wanted to help those who were suffering and in need. So she went to the University of Evansville in Indiana. She graduated summa cum laude, and she later earned 2 master's degrees, one in education and one in psychiatric nursing. She worked for 6 years on the faculty at the University of Evansville, teaching psychiatric nursing and as a part-time staff nurse in what was described as the acutely disturbed unit at Wellborn Hospital. She, in her master's program, the nursing master's program, one of the charges to the graduate students was to develop a theory of nursing. And so from early on, she was oriented to theory, and she found Martha Rogers, and she knew that she wanted to study with Martha Rogers. So she made the decision to leave Indiana. She brought her youngest kids with her to New York City, where she started in the doctoral program at NYU, headed by Rogers. She continued to work part-time at Bellevue Hospital while pursuing her doctoral studies. And following completion of her PhD, she became the assistant director of nursing at Mount Sinai Medical Center in New York City. And following that, she spent 15 years on the faculty at the Hunter Bellevue School of Nursing, City University of New York, Hunter College. She and I started in the doctoral program together. She and I started at Hunter College together, which was absolutely delightful. While teaching, she developed a part-time private practice in health patterning, which she continued following her retirement. She lived in New York City for a number of years before making the decision to return to Evansville, which is where she spent her last years. Elizabeth also edited or co-edited 4 books and has published numerous articles on Rogerian nursing science. On October 2nd of 2021, at the annual conference of SRS, there was a memorial held for Elizabeth called the Celebration of Light and Love. As I said at the time, I would add love. Love, light, life. Because Elizabeth was full of love, full of compassion, of kindness, creativity, and a real zest for life. And I already said that. I'm not going to repeat that. We did enter together, but that's enough on that. I just want to backtrack for a minute because I think I should say that when we entered the doctoral program at NYU, it became clear very early on that Elizabeth was going to be a premier Rogerian nursing scholar. Martha Rogers, as I said, was the chairperson of her dissertation committee, and she came to strongly value Elizabeth, as did the rest of us. At Hunter College, she was very popular with the students, one of the most popular faculty. She was well respected by her colleagues. We had the opportunity to develop and co-teach a course entitled Women in Science that was cross-listed between nursing and women's studies. Outside of the work environment, we collaborated with others on starting SRS. As I indicated, she was its first president. And we started the Martha E. Rogers Scholars Fund, which is the 501c3 arm of SRS, which now offers 2 grants every year for research, practice, administration, or teaching, one of them for those using Rogerian nursing science, and one of them for those using the power work, the power theory, and the tool. Elizabeth loved music and dancing, and she had a very playful streak. One time we were visiting Martha in her cabin in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, when Martha's sister and a young grandniece came to visit. We all went to a water park where I think Elizabeth had as much fun as all of the kids, sliding down the water chute multiple times and splashing in the water. Elizabeth has given us all so much with her power theory and the 2 tools. She lives on in all of us through this shared work, while she has transcended as beautiful energy spirit resonating throughout the universe. And certainly, I still feel that love power resonance with my good friend Elizabeth. Nancy? Oh, yes, we did. I did one. This comes directly from an article that Elizabeth wrote in 2010. We were born with power, and we used it with our very first cry. No one can give us power, and no one can take it away. But that's not what the world wants us to believe. So we get conditioned into thinking in conventional ways that tell us power is the ability to cause or prevent change. Very un-Rogerian, from Rollo May. And with that definition, there goes human freedom, and what may take its place often interferes with the freedom of others or is harmful to others in ever so subtle or ever so severe ways. The life of a human being on earth is a unitary synthesis of an individual's actions. In truth, one's life is really a single act. We are holograms in that our oneness reflects the whole of all oneness in a complex mutual process symphony. When power flows freely with human field motion, there is serenity about the past, optimism about the future, and passion in the present about something we find meaningful for ourselves and for the world. Thank you.
It's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Violet. We miss Elizabeth, for sure.
Yes, yes, but she's still with us.
She is still with us, yeah. Okay, Carly, I guess we turn it back to you now.
Yes. If anybody has any questions they would like to ask, please put them down in the Q&A at the bottom. And I wanted to ask you, Dr. Malinski, if people would like to review the tool or use it in their practice, what are the steps they would do to do that?
They would email me, Viomalin, VIOMALIN, @optimum.net. And I just ask what it is that they're working on. If it's something if it's a research study, I ask that they send me an abstract of the completed research. And then I send the tool along with the scoring guide. The short form, unfortunately, to my knowledge, has not been used in practice, but it has been used in research. And I always caution people, the standard form of the tool has excellent reliability and validity. The short form does not because it was not intended for research. But researchers often want to use it to decrease participant burden, which Elizabeth and I understood. So we were clear that we could not say no if they wanted to use it for research. But I just encourage them to at least compute reliability for their studies. And the reliabilities are quite good when I see the completed results.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
And if people would like to learn more about the Society of Rogerian Scholars or get involved, how would they do that?
Well, we do have a website. They could just Google Society of Rogerian Scholars. I forget the exact, I should know it, but it pops up automatically for me, so I never pay that much attention. But we do, there is information on the website about the founding, the founders. The conference information would be posted there. There's information about the Martha E. Rogers Scholars Fund, and all the information that someone needs to apply is there. The deadlines, April 1st for the Rogerian grant. It used to be September 1st for the Barrett grant, but we decided that's poor timing, particularly for academics. So we are moving it to November, and that will go up on the website soon. And so every April and every November, and the proposals are there, very detailed as to what we would be looking for and how to present it. I am the one that would receive those. And so any questions would come to me at that same email, thevialmalin@optimum.net. And I'm happy to answer anybody's questions if they email me. I welcome emails from people who are interested in the theory and or the tool.
That's great. Thank you so much. And you were right. It's societyofrogerianscholars.org.
Thank you.
Are you
Very simple. I should have figured the .org part out.
very straightforward? Yes. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Malinski and Dr. France, for sharing all of your wisdom with us tonight. It's so clear how deeply this work resonates with the heart of nurse coaching, and how important this work is to the nursing profession. So I thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who joined us live or is going to be watching the recording. We invite you to continue exploring this work and, of course, stay connected with us through future webinars. And until next time, carry this message forward, this message of awareness. Every moment holds the potential for knowing participation, and every nurse is a co-creator of healing and possibility. So have a very good evening, everybody, and thank you so much again.